Hello and welcome to your November 2024 forecast, astrological forecast. My name is Demian Allan. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video that you're about to watch. I'm going to look at an overview of November 2024, and then I'm going to look at each of the 12 signs of the zodiac and how November is going to play out for all of you. So let's just get straight into it and talk about November 2024, because it's a very, very powerful month. Politically, of course, with the USA elections in that first week. But there's a lot of planets going retrograde. But there's also some movement of planets going forward. And this always signifies a time of reflection, movement, reflection, movement. That's how it will pan out. So what we have on the first day of November is we have a new moon straight away at 9 degrees in Scorpio. Now, the moon is not comfortable with Scorpio. In fact, it's in its fall, and therefore that can be quite a tricky energy to deal with because the moon cannot function. It's like being submerged into heavy emotions. But the idea of transformation is going to be really important as well. Transformation with emotions from a collective level. So it's very, very powerful, that moon. It's not really being affected too much by any other planets, really, which is good. But in another way, sometimes when that happens, it means that the actual planet itself has nothing to anchor it. Therefore, it's out on its own. Therefore, if it's not a combination that's comfortable, like the moon in Scorpio, it means it's not very comfortable for all of us, and that's the energy of it. So you have to kind of look out for that. On the second, Mercury goes into Sagittarius. Again, looking at that, Mercury is not comfortable in Sagittarius. It's in its detriment. It's too scattered. The energy is just too much, and therefore our buying and selling, our communication skills really are scattered and all over the place. And this brings an intensity and a vision, but a vision that's not tangible or does not have anything that's lasting. And I think that Mercury is going to have a little bit of a difficult time this month because, as I'm going to speak about, it does go retrograde as well. And that, of course, is going to add to the confusing element in terms of communication. This obviously does not bode well for the USA elections, really, in a way. You know, Mercury is the planet of communication. If people go and vote, they need Mercury on the side. And yet they do not have it. On the 4th, we've got Mars entering into Leo. It's been in Cancer, where it's not been comfortable. So going into Leo, much more comfortable. Mars likes to be in Leo. Leo is a fixed sign, fixed fire sign. It can do something. But this is a tricky energy because for the next few months, Mars is going to be transiting in Cancer and Leo because it's going to go retrograde. So by the end of the year, it goes retrograde. And therefore, we've got these two sides of the zodiac, Cancer and Leo, that are going to be dominated by Mars. But it means that things can actually get done, and Mars is about assertiveness and getting things done. So that's good. On the 6th, is the astrological point of what we call Samhain, when the sun is at 15 degrees in Scorpio. So a good time to celebrate your ancestors, a good time to collect your thoughts, collect your emotions. You know, the veil between the two worlds is at its thinnest in this particular period. Then as we go on, things seem to sort of get a little bit easier. On the 11th, we've got Venus entering into Capricorn. Venus is okay in Capricorn. It works relatively well. It can do stuff a little bit cold, but generally, actually, it works quite nicely. However, the big astrological news is on the 15th. We have a full moon at 24 degrees in Taurus, and it is in conjunction with Uranus. If you've got if you've got a heavy dose of Taurus in your chart or a heavy dose of Scorpio, then in one way, this kind of puts a bit of a closure on a lot of the craziness that's been kind of going on for the last 6.5 years for you. Full moons are about closure, about things coming to an end. And this Uranus conjunction to this full moon, magnifying and accentuating things, suddenly will put that chaos to some kind of conclusion. It doesn't mean that everything goes quiet the next day. It just means that it's sort of magnified, and then things can kind of be pieced back together. I think on a collective level, it's chaotic, very, very chaotic. Again, if we talk about particularly USA elections and what's going on there around about the 6th and 7th, that comes before this full moon, but it still brings a lot of chaos here as well in the aftermath of the elections. And I think that that's going to be something that is going to make the USA elections go on a little bit longer than would be expected, and confusion around that and a little bit of chaos that follows from the results. So that, to me, symbolizes that once you get past the 15th of November, things might start to stabilize, particularly with the USA, and just as just in the Western world as well. And then on the 19th, you see this, as I said, it's a big month. Pluto goes into Aquarius. It'll be there for a long period of time, over 20 years, finally ingressed into Aquarius. And for all you people who are born at the early degrees of Aquarius or Leo or even Taurus or even Scorpio are going to be affected by this. This is when we start to see the themes over the next year play out of how that Pluto in Aquarius is really going to affect us all and affect us individually. Huge, massive shift that goes on there. And that's followed on the 21st by the sun entering into Sagittarius. We're into the Sagittarius, we're into party land, party month, which kind of lightens things a little bit here. But then, remember what I said about Mercury in Sagittarius? On the 26th, it goes retrograde for a 3-week period. So that really kind of causes a little bit of confusion and misunderstandings and issues to do with overseas travel, particularly because Mercury is in Sagittarius. Things becoming a little bit more difficult in that area, and generally the communications industry as well. Mercury does not function well in Sagittarius. It cannot function. Therefore, there is a problem, and this Mercury retrograde will be much more difficult than a lot of Mercury retrogrades that you'll find. So, with the overview, it's one of those times when actually it's tricky. It's a tricky month. It's a month when things will seemingly, we've got some real kind of high points. I also forgot to say that on the 15th, 16th of November, Saturn goes direct as well. So if you've been under a Saturn perfected year, Saturn goes direct, starts moving forward. That's going to really kind of get things kind of moving for people who are under the umbrella of Saturn. But for us all, really, Saturn in Pisces, it's the last time that it goes retrograde in Pisces. So we'd expect things to start to move forward to do with Piscean themes in the collective. But there's quite a few retrogrades going on there. Now, let's look at it from your sun sign or your rising sign. This is so if you've got the sun in Aries or the ascendant in Aries, then listen up. Okay, so let's start off with Aries. What can Aries expect this month? Well, the big news, of course, is that your ruler, Mars, does change zodiac signs on the 4th from Cancer into Leo, which is far more comfortable for you, because Leo is a fellow fire sign like yourself, and it goes into your 5th house, which is the house of, that used to be traditionally known as the house of merriment, which I really like, the house of joy, where we enjoy ourselves. So you could assert yourself in that particular area of life, and it means that that complements you really nicely. Whereas the last 6 weeks, it being in Cancer, has been directed towards the home environment and family matters and ancestral stuff, and that's been quite a tricky, difficult energy to deal with. And then suddenly there's a shift that comes in here as well. Mercury is also moving into Sagittarius. That's in your solar 9th house. So again, another fire side. So a lot of Aries are going to feel like, you know what, I can do stuff this month, whereas perhaps the last 6 weeks they felt like they haven't, or they've had to consider others, which we have to do, don't we, in life? But, you know, Aries should be a little bit selfish because they're there to go forth and conquer. And if they can't be selfish and the considering other people's needs, other people's emotions too much, and they kind of lose the sense of self. So Aries will feel like they can move forward in life in a way that's going to kind of make them feel like you're accomplishing things as well. That Saturn on the 16th moving direct in your 12th house also means that spiritual practices or get in touch with the spiritual side of yourself is also going to be very, very strong at that time. So it's a really kind of good month for you. Taurus. Okay, Taurians. Yeah, the big news, of course, is, of course, the full moon at 24 degrees in your own sign, conjunct to Uranus. A little bit of a crazy time. The 2 days before that and afterwards, quite emotional, quite magnified on the emotional, but also a kind of know where you stand, and, you know, letting go of stuff that needs to be let go of in a way. You've got also the new moon on the 1st of November. That's in your opposite sign of Scorpio. So, you know, those of you sort of born around about the sort of 29th, 30th of April will be affected by that quite a bit. And that's to do with polarity and relationships and other people and how you respond to them. Mars being is really kind of significant because Mars is going into your 4th house, which is the home environment, and a lot of that is going to be about, you know, putting a lot of assertiveness, a lot of energy in the home environment. That is going to be really kind of important for you, sort of fighting your corner in a way. Your financial situation is a little bit turbulent at the moment because Jupiter is in your 2nd house, retrograde, and it just basically means that, you know, it might be moving forward, but also it's not moving fast enough. So you've got to sort of take care of that. But just look out for that full moon. Okay, Geminis. Okay, Geminis, listen, your ruler Mercury is going to go retrograde from the 26th in your opposing sign of Sagittarius. Also, Jupiter is still retrograde in your own sign. It's a weird month for you, Geminis. You know, you're going to have to be a lot more adaptable than you normally are and look at other people's points of view. It's a bit frustrating, you know, for you. And I feel like the Geminis are going to feel like they are just scattered everywhere and they're having to do this and that, you know. And it's not a good month for Geminis. And this is interesting because, of course, we talk about the USA elections and Donald Trump is a sun in Gemini and Kamala Harris is a Gemini rising. So those are 2 candidates. It's confusing, particularly that retrograde. And it just means that there's things that are really not particularly going your way and it's misunderstanding. So it's one of those you have to take a step back and allow things to play out a little bit for Geminis. Okay, Cancer. Right, Cancer. Always look at the moon and what's going on with the moon. The big news is that on the 4th, Mars, which has been in your own zodiac sign, is moving into your 2nd house, moving into the financial house. So suddenly you can kind of concentrate on the more materialistic self-value side of things rather than, you know, concentrating on yourself or having to assert yourself. It will feel like your attention is drawn much more to what you need instead of how you feel. And that's kind of important for Cancerians because they're always considering about how they feel and stuff like that. So suddenly that begins to change. So that's a kind of it's a major month, and it's a major month to understand your value, particularly in your work, and what value you bring to your career, whether you're self-employed or whether you work for other people or a company, whatever. That I think is going to be really, really significant for you. And absolutely, it's a month where you can get a lot done. That full moon on the 15th falls in your 11th house, which is the house of friendships and hopes and dreams and wishes and, you know, the collective. So there might be stuff around the collective, might be stuff with friendships and acquaintances that come up during that time. Okay, Leo. Well, Leo, yeah, from the 4th, Mars goes into your own sign. So this is really kind of big. But we've also got, you know, Pluto going in around about the 20th, 21st into your opposing sign Aquarius, where it's going to be for a long period of time. So if you look at that, we've got kind of, you know, we've got an opposition between Mars and Pluto. Very difficult because it's in your 1st and 7th houses, which is the house of you, the house of relationships. Look to people how they are responding to you. Are they taking too much power from you? Are you needing to be stepping away from that? Are you getting involved in situations which you don't really need to get involved in? When you got Pluto and Mars kind of on your case, the natural thing is I got to get involved. I got to do stuff. And I think that that's always problematic because when you got Mars and Pluto, it's almost like going, well, but you haven't got much power as you think in this situation. You can't change things the way you would like it to. And that becomes difficult and problematic. I can say to you, don't get involved, but you probably will in other people's issues and therefore learn the hard way. But, you know, try not to lose your sense of self when you're doing that. Okay, Virgo. Virgo, your ruler, Mercury, is going to be retrograde 26. It's also in Sagittarius, which rules your 4th house, your 4th solar house, which is to do with your family, which is to do with property, which is to do with your ancestors, which is to do with the part of you that's hidden, where you recharge your batteries. And you can't do that with that Mercury going retrograde in Sagittarius in the 4th house. You're unable to. You're unable to switch off. You've got too much to do. That's the perception and the feeling that you will get. So you're sort of here, there, and everywhere, doing lots, but feeling like you're not achieving as much as you would like. I could say, well, it's going to be a reflective month, but I know that you're not going to do that. You're just going to keep as busy as possible. And you keep busy as possible to deter from the decisions that need to be made at this stage of where you are. It's a little bit of a tough one. It's like the hamster round the wheel, going round, but not actually getting anywhere. So what can you do to avert that? Well, you know, don't take yourself too seriously. You know, when you communicate with others or when you take projects on, really think about, do I need to take this on? Or is this going to make me feel like I'm, you know, just taking on other people's stuff and I don't need to? You know, meditation, taking time out, grounding, all of those things are going to be really important for Virgos this particular month. Okay, Librans. Right, Venus. So Venus is skirting between Sagittarius and Capricorn. When it goes into Capricorn, which is around about the 11th, 12th, that goes into your 4th house, and that's to do with the home environment. That's nice, actually. But I think fundamentally, you know, the sort of the big news with what's going on is the Mercury factor, and the Mercury factor is the 3rd house, and that's in Sagittarius in your chart, and it's going to go retrograde. And the 3rd house is all about how we communicate and how we get our ideas across, which in this case might be muddled during this particular period. Being diplomatic is one characteristic that is important to you as a person. However, when you're too diplomatic, you can't make a decision. And when you can't make a decision, other people are expecting you to come up with the goods and you can't. It creates difficulty. Be warned. Don't allow yourself to procrastinate. Okay, Scorpios. 1st November, new moon in your own sign. Good news start happening here. Look out for the 15th. That means the 2 days before, 2 days afterwards. Why? You got the full moon in your opposing sign in your 7th house, the house of relationships. So things will be kind of magnified. Uranus is conjunct to that full moon, a little bit chaotic, a little bit unpredictable, particularly if you've got your sun in Scorpio round about 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 degrees in Scorpio. You're going to be kind of affected a lot by this energy. Also, your 2nd house, Mercury is retrograde at the end of the month and in Sagittarius, your 2nd house. So the financial aspect, a little bit turbulent, a little bit tricky, a little bit dualistic. It's not to panic. It's to put things in place for the future. Sagittarius, okay, your ruler Jupiter is retrograde this month in your opposing sign Gemini. That is kind of slowing things down quite a bit for Sagittarius. They don't like things slowing down at all. So it's a bit of a funny month. Plus, Mercury goes into your own sign. And plus, it goes retrograde on the 26th. Very slow month for Sagittarians. They could get very frustrated. You're going to have to be your philosophical best to navigate yourself through this instead of trying to just, go at things in a kind of like, reckless way, which sometimes Sagittarians do have a tendency to do just to get things kind of moving. It's a funny month. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Things not going quite according to plan. Make sure things are in place. Don't scatter yourself. The big thing I say to most signs this month, don't scatter yourself. Be aware that you don't try to attach onto the idea that this is how it's always going to be. It's not. It's just this month that it's going to be slow. Capricorn. Okay, Capricorns, look, you're going to be really pleased. 16th, Saturn, your ruler, moves direct. Been retrograde since the end of June. You'll be glad. You'll feel like, actually, finally, life is moving forward. I can now begin to do the stuff that I want to do. You've also got Venus from the 12th, just before that, in your own sign. So for Capricorns, this is going to feel like a breath of fresh air. Going to feel like, you know what? I can plan stuff. I can do stuff. Life's moving forward for me. This is good. Even Mercury retrograde is in your 12th house. Wouldn't be too concerned about that. So Capricorns are the one zodiac sign actually that's going to benefit the most out of November. That's okay. You're just going to feel like, you know what? What's everyone panicking about? This seems like a good month, and it kind of is. It's a month where you feel like you're kind of moving forward in the right way, and that's really good. And even the Mars going into Leo kind of increases your sense of wanting to be outward and wanting to connect with people. So good month for Capricorns. Aquarians, okay. Big news, of course, is the Pluto factor in the mid part of the month going into your own sign, and that is going to be there for over 20 years. Okay, so you got to start to get used to, Pluto. So imagine, buying a new house, and when you first move in, you're a bit sort of discombobulated and a little bit of where is everything and how do I get my routine together? That's what it's going to feel like for a lot of Aquarians. It's going to feel like this energy is just kind of shifted into them and they're still trying to get used to it, and how that's going to manifest for them and how do they use it. Don't panic. You've got this opposition with Mars sort of in the second half of the month, so it's a little bit of a tricky one for Aquarians. You're going to feel a little bit more feisty, a little bit more passionate, a little bit more agitated than you normally would. Aquarians are known for taking a step back and being objective. You might find that a little bit tricky under the energy of November. So just kind of look out for that. Also, friendships and colleagues might go a bit haywire. That Mercury in retrograde in Sagittarius is causing problems for you. Okay, Pisces, listen, Pisces, you know, from the 16th, Saturn is moving forward in your own sign. You'll be glad of that. I'm telling you, a lot of you Pisces, like, you feel like you're a bit more grounded for yourself. Career is the main thing for Pisces because of the Mercury in Sagittarius in the 10th house, and it is retrograde. Time to consider the decisions that you've been making over the last 6 months to do with your career. Does it work? Does it need to be relooked at? This is mainly coming at the end of the month, but it's really kind of throughout the month because of that Mercury traveling in your 10th house. Looking at that. Jupiter is still retrograding in your 4th house in, you know, Gemini, you know, so the home needs to be put to one side. You don't need to worry about that for the moment, but the career just needs to be looked at. You know, are you just going in too many different directions all at the same time and not really focusing? You need to be focusing a lot more. A lot of Jupiterian energy for Pisces at the moment, and that's the traditional ruler. So you'd think they'd be used to it, but I don't think they are, because they got Saturn in their own sign. So they're in splits at the moment. Saturn's saying, be disciplined. Jupiter's going, no, be crazy, do what you want. November's, that's what it's like. But with the Mercury factor, I think you've just got to be kind of very, you know, a little bit kind of understand that this is going to be a little bit of a tricky time to get through. So there's all the signs of the zodiac. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like the video. It all helps. And I no doubt speak to you all very, very soon. Thank you.